Despite repeated Russian claims that they have encircled Pokrovsk and that the city's fall is only a matter of time, the reality on the ground looks far different. Instead of collapsing, Pokrovsk has become the scene of grinding, close-quarters combat in which Ukrainian forces, now reinforced by some of the nation's most elite drone units, are inflicting massive casualties on Russian troops. Far from an easy victory for Moscow, Pokrovsk has turned into a fortress, one that continues to stand largely because of a significant shift in Ukraine's defensive approach. This shift began in early November, when Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky made a series of visits to the Pokrovsk front. These were not symbolic trips. Zelensky's presence boosted morale among exhausted defenders, but just as importantly, it allowed him to receive direct, unfiltered reports from the battlefield. His first trip occurred around November 4th, according to the BBC. Little information emerged publicly, aside from Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky dismissing Russia's loud proclamations that its forces had encircled the city. Even so, Zelensky must have sensed the gravity of the situation, because just a week later, on November 11th, he returned to Pokrovsk. That second visit came as Russia's defense ministry claimed it had cleared dozens of buildings and was on the verge of tightening a noose around the city. Ukraine countered that it had deployed additional special forces, weapons, and critical equipment to strengthen key defensive positions. At the time, independent verification of either side's statements was difficult. But as the following days unfolded, it became clear that Ukraine had indeed sent reinforcements, and some of the country's most dangerous units were now arriving on the battlefield. After his November 11th visit, Zelensky released a blunt public message. "This is our country, this is our East, and we will do our utmost to keep it Ukrainian." While his words were aimed at both domestic and international audiences, the real strategic shift was happening behind the scenes. According to a detailed November 18th frontline report from Euromaidan Press, Zelensky spent much of his time in Pokrovsk visiting the headquarters of the Birds of Magyar, one of Ukraine's most formidable drone and reconnaissance brigades. Originally a specialized unit famous for its precision and endurance, the Magyar Birds had recently expanded into a full brigade. Their reputation was forged in the brutal 110-day battle for Bakhmut, where they held their positions until ordered to withdraw in March 2023. Though ultimately pushed back, the unit gained deep experience in urban combat, drone warfare, electronic intelligence, and reconnaissance. By late 2024, they had become one of Ukraine's most lethal drone forces. During Zelensky's visit, the Magyar base effectively became a coordination hub for Ukraine's elite drone units. There, Zelensky and Syrsky met with top operators from the Magyar Birds, the 25th Airborne Brigade, the 7th Rapid Response Brigade, and the 1st Azov Corps. The goal was clear: assemble a strike group capable of halting the Russian advance inside and around Pokrovsk. The commanders told Zelensky what they needed: equipment, drones, munitions, and logistical support, and he assured them the resources would come. Then he and Syrsky issued a single directive, one that Euromaidan Press later described as unmistakable in its brutality: finish off the Russian forces operating in Pokrovsk. What followed was a devastating escalation in Ukraine's use of drones. The Magyar Birds were deployed to the city's southern perimeter, an area where Russian infiltrators had been slipping through Ukrainian lines in small groups. These were not the massive mechanized assaults Russia launched earlier in the war. Instead, Moscow was sending in small teams, or even lone soldiers, hoping that their reduced profile would allow them to avoid detection. ABC News Australia reported that around 300 Russian troops had already infiltrated Pokrovsk this way. The infiltrators were not staging direct assaults. Instead, they were creeping through the destroyed urban landscape, hiding in basements, collapsed buildings, abandoned garages, anywhere they could wait for reinforcements. Russia assumed Ukraine would not waste drones on isolated soldiers when larger threats loomed elsewhere. This assumption proved catastrophically wrong. The Magyar Birds were instructed to destroy every Russian soldier they found, regardless of whether the target was alone, hidden, or seemingly insignificant, and they executed this order with unrelenting precision. Drone footage published by Censor.net on November 11th captured the new strategy in action. The video, 87 seconds long, though some of it too graphic for public release, showed a lone Russian soldier moving through woodland near Pokrovsk. After finding what he thought was a safe hiding spot among the wreckage of destroyed equipment, Ukrainian operators unleashed wave after wave of drones. Multiple drones struck his position until one finally reached him directly. The soldier was eliminated. This was only one example among hundreds. In October alone, the Magyar birds took out an estimated 8,000 Russian soldiers in and around Pokrovsk using drones. Their November operations continued the slaughter. Euromaidan Press reported a single compilation video showing 39 Russian soldiers, 6 motorcycles, and a quad bike destroyed. Just a small sample of the ongoing campaign. Their drones hunted infiltrators day and night. Even soldiers hiding in rubble or underground shelters were eventually found and neutralized. Southern Pokrovsk had become a lethal kill zone. Politico reported on November 18th that such drone-infested zones, stretching up to 20 kilometers from the front lines, had become a core element of Ukraine's broader defensive doctrine. These kill zones are so saturated with drones that wounded Russian soldiers often cannot be evacuated. Any attempt to rescue them is quickly detected and destroyed. Roughly 100 Russian soldiers were dying daily in Pokrovsk as a result, but the Magyar birds were not the only elite unit operating in the city. Ukraine's main intelligence directorate, the HUR, had also deployed its specialized drone operators and airborne forces into Pokrovsk to hunt Russian troops hiding inside the city. Their primary tool was the FPV fiber optic drone, a system connected to operators via thin, durable cables that allow real-time, high-definition video while resisting jamming and weather limitations. FPV drones are deadly on their own. Dozens operating simultaneously inside a shattered city are transformative. In just 1 month, the HUR killed around 1,500 Russian soldiers in Pokrovsk and its outskirts, according to Euromaidan Press. They also destroyed 18 electronic warfare and air defense systems, 39 artillery pieces, 20 tanks, 62 armored vehicles, and more than 500 other vehicles. Several ammunition depots and fuel reservoirs were hit as well. These losses were especially devastating for Russia because it was not launching large armored assaults. Any tank or vehicle it risked sending toward Pokrovsk was likely to be destroyed almost immediately. Zelensky returned again in late November to congratulate the Magyar birds, HUR units, and other elite forces for their extraordinary results. Awards were handed out, and conversations focused on what they would need next to maintain their advantage. Meanwhile, Russian claims of encirclement continued, but they failed to match battlefield reality. Meduza reported on November 19th that despite weeks of boasting, Russia had not encircled Pokrovsk. Ukraine still controlled critical approaches, including Ryshine to the west, and the supply road connecting the city to Dnipro. Still, the situation remains perilous. Zelensky warned that a third of all combat clashes across the entire Ukrainian front line are now occurring in or around Pokrovsk. Russia has intensified its use of glide bombs. Half of all such strikes in early November targeted the city, and Moscow has increased the number of daily assaults to nearly 100, a level matched only a few times throughout 2025. Whether Pokrovsk will fall remains uncertain. Russia has committed a staggering number of forces, up to 150,000 troops, according to Reuters, to make one final push before winter conditions hinder operations. Russian forces have made some advances, including gaining positions north of the city, but Ukraine has shown that it can swiftly eliminate infiltrators, especially if they remain isolated. Facing mounting losses, Russia has turned to more desperate and illegal strategies. On November 18th, Ukraine's security service, SBU, reported that Russian troops inside Pokrovsk were using civilians as human shields, forcing a man, a woman, and a 13-year-old child to walk ahead of them while clearing buildings. The next day, the Kyiv Independent reported that Russian infiltrators were disguising themselves as civilians by removing their uniforms and blending into the remaining population. Both tactics constitute war crimes designed to make Ukraine hesitate during engagements. These actions highlight Russia's growing desperation. Instead of advancing confidently, Moscow's forces are being shredded by kill zone drones, hunted relentlessly by FPV units, and denied the footholds they expected to establish inside Pokrovsk. The battle is far from over, but Ukraine's strategy, built around elite drone brigades, enhanced coordination, and adaptable defense, has dramatically reduced the likelihood of a Russian victory before winter. Whether this will be enough to prevent the city's eventual fall remains unknown. But what is certain is that Pokrovsk has become one of the deadliest battlegrounds of the war, and for now the fortress still stands.